Hello and welcome to the Market Minds Insurtech For Good webinar. This is the first webinar in the series Using Insurtech to Tackle COVID-19, with the help of a select number of participants ranging from startups, government agencies, investors and professors. This series endeavours to explore how the global Insurtech ecosystem is responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. This episode is sponsored by Hadial. Nigerian-based Hadial is a digital health insurance and SaaS platform that aggregates all stakeholders of the insurance ecosystem, being the employer, employee, or care provider. It curates health data to churn out insights on disease trends, health expenditure, and behavioral health mapping via data science and AI, thus empowering every player to make empirical and informed decisions transparently. Please visit their website at www.hadial.com.ng. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Your last stop before the Easter break, all the way from isolation here in North London. I'm Sebastian. I'm the CEO of Market Minds. We're a global insurtech platform, and we work to facilitate partnerships between the technology and insurance community globally. We run events, podcasts, and now webinars, helping to nurture that community, provide thought leadership, and identify the best people to facilitate discussions that are the most important to those working in the sector. This webinar is a series based on a response to what is happening in the world at the moment with COVID-19. The insurtech industry, we feel, has a very important role to play in this response. And I think many of the speakers here today, well, all of them certainly, have got much to say about it, and also are really at the forefront of responding to what is happening with this pandemic. I think we are, to an extent, witnessing history, and how we respond as an industry and society will have a permanent effect for good and the bad. I think it's therefore essential that we have these discussions and also showcase real practical examples of how different ecosystems and companies across the world are responding to such a fast and effective pandemic. The format of the webinar today is to have 3 presentations from all of our speakers. Each speaker will present for 5 minutes or so, and then there will be several minutes for you to ask them questions directly. After everyone has spoken, we will have a Q&A with everyone in the audience. We really want this to be a very interactive session. There are some really good tools on the platform for you to ask questions and answer polls. So please do ask as many questions as you would like, and I'll do my best to direct them and select them and put them to the speakers that we have. We had some original marketing with a list of speakers. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulty on our side, Miss Susan Holiday cannot join us, but she will be joining us on the next episode on the 23rd of April, which will be the second of the 3 episodes in the series. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by 3 very distinguished guests who each represent businesses at the forefront of dealing with this crisis. We will start with Tunde Salako of Hadial. We also have Richard Leffley of MicroInsure and Sarah Koscianski of 11FS. I would like to give a special thanks to Hadial for sponsoring this webinar. Thank you very much for your support, Tunde and your team. And to kick things off, I am delighted to introduce Tunde Salako, the CEO of Hadial. Tunde is your hybrid business insurance doctor and your go-to guy on all things insurtech in Africa. He is also the CEO of Hadial, and they are a Nigerian-based digital health insurance and SaaS platform that aggregate all stakeholders of the insurance ecosystem, being the employer, employee, and care providers. It curates health data to churn out insights on disease trends, health expenditure, and behavioral health mapping via data science and AI, thus empowering every player to make empirical and informs decisions transparently. Tunde, I'm going to pull up your presentation, and then if you'd like to begin as you see fit, and I'm just here to help with the slides.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much indeed, Sebastian, for the intro. It's great to be here. I'll just delve straight into it, and then I'll stick around to take any questions as we discuss. But it's amazing to put this kind of webinar together at times like this. So let's just delve straight into it. So our company is called Hagel, and basically, as Sebastian actually rightly introduced, we're using data science and AI to drive empirical and informed decisions. We try to operate as a mortar and a pestle model, or should I say the brick and mortar model, where essentially we have the product and we're able to also galvanize the solution as well. So we offer the software and we also sell the insurance products well curated with data science and AI. Next slide, please, Sebastian. So Sebastian has actually introduced this very apt. So our platform is data-driven and empowers our stakeholders to actively and proactively mitigate risk, improve quality outcomes, and financially optimize decisions. So essentially, we're offering that end-to-end process, within the health insurance ecosystem. Next slide, please. So we like to describe our company as achieving its ikigai, which is, for those of us who are familiar with it, it's a Japanese terminology. And so we'd like to describe our ikigai by being wedged on the SDG 3.8, which is to achieve universal health coverage, and we're doing this because we want to essentially expand the net of financial risk protection, right? We're trying to see how we can galvanize systems to pretty much just churn in quality health essential services, and let that be accessible across all planes. And one of our key thoughts and our strengths is the fact that because we have domain knowledge from the past, we believe very strongly that with data science and AI, that could be the catalyst to transforming inclusion in terms of universal health coverage in Africa as a whole. So we're galvanizing inclusion, want to see improved quality outcomes, and we're basically just trying to make sure that whatever sector you find yourself in, whether you're formal or informal, government agencies, we're optimizing value for healthcare expenditures. So we're currently registered in Lagos. We're headquarters in Lagos. We're registered in Nigeria. We have representation in two other African cities at the moment. We have a trajectory of how we want to see a growth happen over the next 2 to 3 years as to being able to operate across multiple African cities. Next slide, please. So in terms of the purpose for this webinar, which we're very, very happy to participate and take part in, the current situation in Africa with the COVID-19 pandemic, it keeps moving on a daily basis, and we're seeing traction as regards responses from different industries, particularly within the health technology industry, and the Insurtech is not also lagging behind. Now, when we talk about the African cities, the different factors that are playing at the moment, which for those of us who are well informed of what's happening down here on the continent would know that certain things like the ability to test and get results is a major factor at this point in time. However, before the virus got into Africa, I think it was one of the last places for it to hit. We've started to see cases surge, and what you can see on the slide is what was currently, as of yesterday, the updates. The figures and the stats probably would have changed as of today because we still stopped getting updates from the different parts of the continent on a daily basis. And I think on that note, I want to just take a quick salutation to all the African cities and the government as regards what they're doing, especially in terms like this, where we really don't understand the pathogens of the virus at this point. So as of yesterday, total confirmed number of cases was 10,808. Recovered 1,201. Deaths estimatedly 538. That's on the continent holistically, not in one country. So we've had scenarios where from the highest points to the lowest cases, you're having about 1,000, as high as about 1,700 cases in certain parts of Africa, particularly the south. And we've had scenarios where we've had just 0 recorded cases. Now, I would say we're not very certain as to whether to split it in between there is no virus in such countries. There are a handful of them, by the way. There are not so many. Or could it be the fact that the testing has not been vigorous in such places? But this is the spectrum of what we have at this point, where we have as high as about 1,749 cases, which was the highest as of yesterday. And then, certain places that have not recorded any case, either because, well, the virus has not spread into those areas because of travel, or because testing has not been done to the best of its capabilities. What we also observed, before I delve into how we're responding, because I'm just trying to give a kind of a background to what's happening on the continent holistically, we observed that majority of the cases, over 80%, actually seem to be cases which were transmitted based on travel cases, right? Although, like for instance, in Nigeria, in Lagos specifically, the Lagos State Ministry Commissioner of Health announced that the transmission is being propagated by community transmission of up to about 40% in recent times. So it will continuously morph over the next 1 month. From my point of view, we will know what is happening. A lot of in the different African cities. I will start with Nigeria, for instance. There's been a very heavy regulation and a ban on travel. So, and there's a lockdown in 3 major cities at the moment in Nigeria, Lagos specifically as well. So, as of yesterday, we had 254 cases. In Kenya, about 158 cases. Tanzania, it's pretty low, 24 cases. But then again, we don't know whether this has to do with testing or because those are areas that the travel has not been heavy over the past 2 to 3 months. Ghana was surging with about 313 cases as of yesterday evening. And then South Africa, 1,794 cases, I beg your pardon, as of yesterday evening. So it's we're recording certain situations, but the good news is we're also recovering. We're seeing cases of high recoveries across the different cities. We, as Hadiel, have put the cities forward because those are the cities which our solution is sort of targeted in terms of response, right? And I'll explain the reason why as we go forward. Can I have the next slide, please? So, in a nutshell, what we've done is we've partnered with our technical partners who are based in Barcelona, Spain, who actually have an intelligently driven symptom checkup, which basically replaces a physical doctor at this time. It will be interesting to also see the trends that are happening when we talk about telemedicine and digital health in these days, because I mean, post-COVID, it looks like what this would have done is to actually galvanize the stay of these specialties. So we've partnered with that company. It's called Medicta, and we're giving our own, response pan-Africanly to the following countries, which you can see: Nigeria, which is where we're based and registered, Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, and then South Africa. So it's pretty much an open tool which essentially does the following. Can I have the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Yeah. So it collects clinical symptoms. So once you have the link, it basically takes the symptoms the way you would walk into a consultation room, and when you get the symptoms being checked, it organically morphs because it's artificially driven, just like you would have your Alexa and AI-driven methodologies, but this is clinical. And then it reveals not only the current diagnosis or the risk of having COVID. It grades it from low to high risk. It also reveals differential diagnosis of what at the moment the person who is checking might actually have. So for instance, if there are comorbid conditions, which means conditions which have been a form of an ailment to that person before taking the test, it also flags it off. So, and one of with research and the studies that are coming around in the medical community, what we're beginning to see is the fact that cases that are tagged along with existing comorbidities like non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, cancer, etc., they have a higher prognosis and susceptibility to the virus. One of the other things that it does is the tool reveals a printable or downloadable personalized individual report. So it takes you all of less than 2 minutes to just quickly go through it. And once you've done that, you can easily just download or print out your reports. Of course, needless to say, the platform is HIPAA compliant and also NDPR compliant, which is a regulatory body for the Nigerian business environment. So when you take this test, what happens is because we're catering to these regions that we mentioned, you can see the next call of action, points of action to take if you are at a high risk of the COVID-19 virus. It basically gives you a guidance, and we are doing this because we see that essentially it would help to bridge the gap between the capabilities of the testing, which is happening in these different countries. So drilling down to Nigeria specifically, one of the things that Hadiel has done now is to partner with one of the agencies, which is the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research. And right now, what we're currently doing is we're using the tool as an augmentation to the testing which is being done. There's a drive-through testing which is being done in this center. So when people come up, what they're meant to do is to quickly have the evaluation done. And once it's done, they submit their blood samples. They see whether they're going to be probably coming out positive or negative. So that's how we are responding to it. I will also mention that apart from the fact that we are using this symptom checker, for people who are at low risk for COVID and who turn out negative, we also have a telechat partner, which is called oncopadi.com, where they essentially can go to and then chat and get answers to their clinical symptoms, just in case if it is not the COVID-19 that the assessment has generated. If we go back to the previous slide, please. The interesting thing is, the previous one before this, the interesting thing is that there are unique ways that we've also seen that each country is responding. So for instance, in Nigeria, the response is very critical at this point. All hands on deck. The NCDC is the National Center for Disease Control. We have the Lagos State Ministry of Health, excuse me, the Federal Ministry of Health as well, and the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, which I mentioned earlier that we're in partnership with. They have been able to come up with very innovative methodologies, and with our tool, we believe that we should be able to, get the preferred answers to people who are worried and to allay their fears and their anxieties if they may have contracted the disease at this point. Fascinating things are also happening in Kenya. I saw that Bertrand is online. Hello, Bertrand. So for his company called Kadbima, they're having agents and brokers, having digital dashboards that they can use to channel and churn their insurance products to their end users and consumers at this point. There's also an AI chatbot, which he actually mentioned to me when we were chatting a couple of days ago, called Rona, that basically just does the disease mapping and the surveillance around the environs in Kenya. And so you have very interesting things that are morphing. In South Africa, Discovery Health is partnered with Vodacom, and they're giving free telehealth consultations throughout this period. The government is also responding as well. Ghana, I saw someone give the updates, 25 cases. Thank you for that. So fingers crossed, we're looking at the next couple of weeks with the lockdowns and with the methodologies being placed in the different African cities. We believe very strongly and we're optimistic that the spread of the virus should be curbed. But it's interesting to see that aside from what we are doing in responding in our own capacity, other people are coming up with their own tools and their own systems in the Insurtech space, to respond appropriately to this COVID-19 pandemic. I think I should stop there for now because I'm supposed to have 5 minutes, but I'm happy to throw more intuition. And then, by the way, I'm just going to show the slide. Can I quickly get to the 2 slides before this, please? The previous one before this. Oh, yes. So Medictor is that technical partner I mentioned earlier. They are the most accurate AI-based medical assistants at this point. We say that with all sense of pride and humility at the same time. They do the pre-diagnosis and decision-making support. They've been phenomenal in this project with Hadiel, and we're happy to have them as technical partners, and that's why we've been able to respond appropriately in Africa. Thanks for listening, and I'll stay on while I listen to questions and answers at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Tunde.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. I think we ran a little bit over time. Unless there are questions on this particular topic, we might move on so that we can have a general discussion after all the presentations, if that's okay. Unless the audience would like to ask something, but I couldn't see anything in the questions section, so we might therefore move straight on, if that's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And apologies for overrunning the time.
That's okay. That's okay. We're working the tech, trying to. So.
All right. Great.
Okay.
I'll introduce myself. My name is Sarah Kachansky. I am the head of research at a challenger consultancy called 11FS. One of the things, well, what we do basically is we help challengers build challenges. So we build financial services, products, services, and brands for the businesses out there that want to be truly digital. The reason I am here talking to you today is that I am the host of one of our podcasts, which is called Insurtech Insider. And off the back of that, I've been doing some research into how insurtechs around the world have responded to the current COVID crisis. So can I have my next slide, please? Thank you very much. So first of all, a quick look, super brief, at what the big guys are doing. So pretty much this sums up every insurer in every large insurer across the world. We've got insurers pulling products off the market. We've got insurers, spending all their time focusing on how they're going to actually calculate their payouts. And then what they're doing in a lot of cases is specifically excluding COVID-19. So they're actually changing their terms and conditions. So basically, even if you thought you had insurance, it's quite possible that you might not now. And whilst they're doing all of that, they are certainly not focusing on their customers who are desperate to find out if they can claim anything back, if they've had travel plans cancelled, or if their health, they need to be claiming on their health insurance. So they're not doing a great job, basically. But there is some light in the darkness. Could I have my next slide, please? Thank you. Insurtechs, generally speaking, have actually been very, very proactive. They've done, 3 core things here, I think, that are important to bring out. They've been keeping their existing customers happy. So they have been trying really, really hard to make it as easy as possible for their customers to get in touch. They work really, really hard to get those customers. If you're a small business, as you know, it's, getting those first 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 20,000 customers is really hard work. The last thing you want to do is lose them at this point. So they've been focusing on support channels for existing customers. They've also seen an opportunity to acquire new customers. So we've seen quite a few insurtechs launching products, offers, if you like, saying that customers can access their services for free for a set period. So that's the idea being that if you are in a certain demographic that insurtech targets, perhaps a gig economy worker, or you work for a healthcare provider, you can access insurance for a limited period for free or for a reduced rate. And then, those insurers will come back to you after that time expires and perhaps see if you want to carry on, if you want to purchase the insurance. So it's twofold. They are offering support to non, customers who were not customers prior to this. They're offering support for free to new customers. And that's a good thing to be doing. They're particularly supporting frontline workers, but they are also keeping an eye on how they might boost their own customer acquisition. And finally, last but by no means least, they're doing something that we haven't seen an awful lot of from the big players. They're collaborating, they're working together to get joint propositions out there that offer more holistic solutions to the ongoing and escalating crisis. So what I want to do is talk you through a few examples of where we've seen insurtechs reacting proactively. I will caveat this with, this is by no means any and all examples that are out there. The examples are largely European and US, with a couple of Asian ones thrown in, because that is where our research hub is focused. But I know there are lots more out there. So it's not in any means designed to be kind of exclusionary. Okay, can I have my next slide, please? Thank you very much. So, as you might imagine, we've seen significant COVID-19 related activity among health and life insurers. That's in no way surprising, but what we can see is kind of a marked difference from many of the incumbent businesses that are really still struggling to put together a response to this, let alone working out, how to launch products and services that are helping their customers. So, Ping An, as you would imagine, being the second largest insurance company in the world, I class it as an insurtech because it's built because of its technology platform, but I do understand it is also an incumbent. They have worked really hard and really quickly to develop a system that uses natural language programming to handle, to screen people who are calling into a helpline to describe their symptoms. So basically, this system can handle 1.5 million calls daily. And that's invaluable to not only Ping An, but that data can then theoretically be used for future modeling and underwriting purposes. We've also got Alain, or Alain, please forgive my French accent, but they are a French company. And they've launched a service, again, I'm going to butcher this, un coup de pouce, or a helping hand. This insurtech has basically offered this service for free until the end of May. And what it is it offers advice on what to do day to day. So it provides you with a questionnaire to help you identify if you're at risk, and then it will give you personal recommendations. It will offer you reimbursement for some medication, a consultation with a GP, so with a doctor, with a physician. It will do that remotely, and that's in partnership, as I mentioned earlier. Collaboration is important, with another app called Livy. It also provides 2 months free access to Headspace, which, for those who don't know, is a meditation app, and it's nodding to that the awareness that people's mental health is just as important as their physical health at the moment. And the goal of this is basically to relieve pressure on frontline services by helping people who are able to diagnose and treat themselves at home, stop them going out and either spreading the disease or putting other people at risk. And then last but by no means least, I wanted to include Behold.ai. They're not strictly an insurtech, but they use deep learning models basically to speed up and improve accuracy of medical diagnoses. Their red dot algorithm, which was already being used to detect abnormalities in chest x-rays, can apparently almost instantly detect whether chest x-rays from suspected COVID-19 patients need referral or not. That program is being fed data from healthcare services around the world, and then after that, hopefully once the worst of the crisis has passed, but also, I'm sure they would do it quicker, but I don't think anybody's ready to receive it yet. They are using those algorithms results, its findings, and its development trajectory to help predict how future epidemics might pan out. And for insurers, that means, helping them improve underwriting accuracy before we face the next pandemic, which invariably there will be. I'm going through these really quickly, so if anybody wants to ask more details later, please just ping me. Next, please. So motor and home. So this is an interesting one. Most places around the world, most people are no longer allowed to go out. They're no longer driving their cars. So what does that mean for motor insurance? Well, what it means, what we've seen thus far is a lot of the on-demand insurers. So you only turn on your insurance when you're driving, saying that they're now the best option because you don't have to have that annual policy. We've also seen a couple of them step up and really offer to help the community. So in the UK, we have Vago, which is actually owned by Admiral, a much bigger insurer, but they're offering 75% off all policies to key workers that are struggling to get to work. And the idea there is that those key workers need to get to work, but in many, many places, public transport's been cut. And also these people are already at, huge levels of risk, going to their jobs. They don't need to be put at greater risk by traveling on public transport with a lot of other people. Also want to give a nod to Lemonade here. So Lemonade, as many people know, the US home and renters insurance, they already have a scheme called a give back. And basically what that means is that funds that are not paid out in claims are donated to a non-profit organization chosen by the customer. Customers can now choose to have that donated to a company that specializes in sending medical supplies to health workers on the front lines. And I think that's a really important example because it shows both the agility to react quickly, but also the ability to read customer sentiment. And I think that's something that a lot of older, perhaps more traditional insurers have failed to do historically. And then next slide, please. Right, so the gig economy and SME workers, there's a huge rise in this type of worker all over the world. But this crisis could be hugely devastating. So many small businesses simply won't survive the next few months, even those lucky enough to be operating in countries where governments have got funding plans in place. Gig economy workers very, very rarely have the benefits of full-time employees, so that includes sick pay. So at this point, services to maintain physical and mental health are really a lifeline. So SMBs can't afford to lose key workers, and gig economy workers can't afford to lose their jobs. Insurtechs are already plugged into this gap. They're covering this group in the first place, which is, something that a lot of larger insurance have struggled or been unwilling to do thus far. There are hundreds of examples in this space. Again, I'll just give you a couple. There's Zego, which it operates in the UK, and they offer policies that cover drivers and riders in the gig economy. And they've said that their people who have a policy from them can have 14 days free insurance to anyone who has to self-isolate. So basically they can claim up to 2 weeks free insurance when they renew their policy. Now that doesn't alleviate the immediate burden of being unable to earn whilst in self-isolation, but it does reassure customers that they're not paying for a service they don't need. And just to call back to that motor insurance piece, there's a lot of people currently paying for policies that are no longer required because they're not actually moving around. Just to make a nod to Grab there, Grab, which operates out in Singapore, it's a ride-hailing app, but they have a huge range of services, as so many of the Uber apps, or sorry, wrong choice of words, super apps do in Asia. Grab has an insurance partnership with Chubb. It's had that for a while, and they were one of the first to act, really. So they offer delivery drivers and riders free lump sum payout if they're diagnosed. That was initially until the 19th of March, but obviously Singapore is now in its second and third wave. So drivers who are signed up to GrabCare, which is a separate but complementary service which offers discounted trips for healthcare providers, they could claim 1,000 Singaporean dollars, while all other drivers are eligible for 500 Singaporean dollars. The greater payout for GrabCare basically helps drivers balance the increased risk of working with frontline staff, but it also means that Grab can continue offering that service, which is another key way of keeping those key workers moving. And the final one I just wanted to mention was digital risk. So digital risks have partnered Underpinned, which is basically a platform that helps small businesses do administration more quickly and easier. And this is an example I wanted to bring up because it's a really good example of collaboration. So digital risks offers the insurance, Underpinned offers administrative tools, and between them, they'll offer small businesses, free access for a limited period to commercial legal protection, 24/7 helplines for legal, financial, and tax issues, mental health support, again, so important right now until September. And the point being that with collaboration, you've got, really everything is in one place that gives a more holistic service for customers, but you can also pool your resources. So last slide, please. So I just wanted to sort of summarize, because I have raced through those, but I wanted to summarize, I think, the key attributes of Insurtech that have responded here, and the things that other companies can do if they want to react in the same way. The first thing to do is to put customer centricity front and center. So you need to have truly digital services that actually solve customers' problems as easily as possible. And by truly digital, we just mean it's got to be something that you don't think about. It's a service rather than a product. It's inbuilt. And that customer centricity is so important, because it means everything you're doing is with them in mind. And then, that keeps your existing customers happy and loyal, but it also helps you retain some of those new customers you've brought on trial periods or discounted periods. Speed, obviously, super important. I mean, we all know that insurtechs are largely far more agile and able to act than the bigger players with, those historic platforms. But I think it's also really important to point out that they are reactive. They react very, very quickly to their customers, and that's because they're always actively listening. So that goes back to that customer centricity point. If your customers are at the heart of everything you do, then you will find it a lot easier to make sure those customers stay happy and loyal. And then the final thing is that collaboration point. Don't be afraid to work together. If you can group complementary services, that the solution is more holistic and it's more useful. You get to focus on the product and the service you're actually good at or known for. And then there's the point, of course, that the pooling of resources offers opportunities for greater marketing reach, higher capacity to handle incoming queries, and then that in turn increases likelihood of customer retention. So that's me for now. As I said, that was a super quick run through, but we'll see if Richard can join us now, because I know we're running up against time.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for that. We are going to see if we can move straight on to Richard, and then see if we have some time for questions at the end. But thank you very much for that overview. Okay.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Richard, can we hear you?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
We can. Brilliant. Good to go. Excellent. Okay. You're off.
Good. First slide. Thanks. If we could, just go straight to that. So just by way of a little bit of background, I mean, Microinsure is an insurtech, which is really focused on providing a range of kind of life, accident, and hospitalization insurance to emerging consumers in Africa and Asia. Serving tens of millions of customers. So over the course of our existence, we've signed up about 65 million customers using a B2B or a B2B2C model, whereby we partner up with telcos, mobile wallets, lending organizations, whether they be banks or microfinance organizations, as well as kind of ride-hailing platforms and e-commerce platforms. We work with about 60 different traditional insurance companies around the world, everything from the very large kind of multinationals through to small domestic players. And our products typically are in the range of about 3 cents to about $1 a month. I guess our role as an insurtech tends to be quite broad. Insurance companies have been around in these markets for decades, and yet 97% of the population doesn't have insurance. And as a result, we've had to kind of step into the gap over the last 20 years. So we've been going since the early 2000s to do quite a wide range of activities, which you wouldn't normally find in some of the insurtechs that Sarah was talking about earlier. So we get involved in everything from designing and pricing products to creating customer journey. We sell the products often through our own call centers, as well as through a range of kind of digital channels, which include SMS, USSD, web, and app. We collect the premiums often on a daily basis, quite often from airtime balances. We get involved in answering customers' questions and educating the consumers, because 80% of these clients have never had insurance before. We also provide a range of kind of mHealth services like teledoc, health tips, and that's been going on for many years now. And then finally, we get involved in helping to verify and pay claims with an average claims turnaround time of about 5 working days. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to focus on our operation in Pakistan. We've been working in Pakistan for about 7 years now. We work with a wide range of organizations, including 3 of the main mobile network operators. So this is JazzCash, Ufone, and Telenor. And we also work with a number of banks like Kashali Bank, and with the ride-hailing companies like Careem, which is part of Uber, now is part of Uber. for us, we've been kind of using our call center to sell through these organizations, but over the course of the last few weeks, all of these 4 organizations that are on the screen, these are just screenshots of kind of press releases that have come out in the last few days, in the last few weeks. First, on the top left-hand corner is Careem. So Careem is a ride-hailing platform, and their drivers, they call them captains. We had been selling insurance to these captains through our call center for about a year now. And what Careem started to realize was that there was actually quite a significant change in loyalty. So as COVID hit, a lot of the drivers started to kind of not show up for work, not be available because they were worried about getting sick, but they were also noticing that there was less traffic, less people wanting rides. But what Careem did notice was that actually the drivers that had bought the insurance were nearly 40% more likely to show up for work. And so, if they'd bought health insurance, they were more likely to be willing to show up and go to work. And as a result, Careem announced that they were going to be willing to introduce this health insurance that we had, which covers COVID, to their drivers, with a view that would then help them keep more of the drivers at work. The next to go live was Uphone and Telenor. So Uphone in the bottom left corner, and the top right is the blue advert from Telenor. These are kind of telcos who decided that they were going to launch kind of COVID-specific products that would meet the needs of people if they got sick. So if they get hospitalized, they get a lump sum, and if they die, then they get money as well. And so these products got launched within about 3 days. From the time that they were kind of conceived to the time that they were live, and they are available both through kind of call centers as well as self-reg. And then finally, Kushali Bank, which is I think it's the largest microfinance bank in Pakistan, and they extended an offer to all of their borrowers and their savers. Any client of Kushali Bank have free access to our teledoc service, so they can call a doctor 24 hours a day, speak to a doctor, discuss their health needs, and decide what to do from there. Okay, next slide. What's really interesting to me has been the kind of this massive jump in terms of demand for insurance in relation to COVID-19. So 80% of our clients are new to insurance. We've discovered that we actually have to go out there and sell insurance, because guess what? No one wakes up wanting to buy insurance. No one woke up this morning and thought, hey, I want to buy insurance. But today they did actually wake up wanting to buy insurance because they're worried about getting sick, or they're worried about their funeral costs and how their family would cope if the worst were to happen. And in the past, we've used our call center, and in the past, we've also tried a digital approach of sending out kind of SMS blasts to millions of clients. But in the past, we were seeing less than 0.5% of people that we pinged actually ended up signing up for insurance. At the beginning of this year, January, February time, as news of COVID broke, we continue to do this kind of SMS blasting because it's a very cheap way of reaching people. And we noticed that there was a significant jump from about 0.5% to about 1.5% who started to sign up for the insurance through the self-registration channel. So we took that evidence to all of our partners, all of the telcos that we worked with, and they launched very quickly a self-reg channel. It normally takes us about up to 8 months to launch one of these channels. These channels got launched in 3 days, and today we're seeing somewhere in the region of between 3 to 4% of clients self-register digitally for COVID insurance. So far today in Pakistan, we've seen about 16,000 people voluntarily sign up for insurance through a single telco. So we're working with multiple telcos, and we're seeing significant increase in the number of people that are getting insurance for the first time. Interesting to have teledoc, doctor, and the volume hasn't massively increased. People, keen to actually do that. Okay, next slide. So What's been kind of quite interesting to me is that pandemics in all of our products are actually covered; they're not excluded. And I think maybe this is because as an insurtech, over the last 20 years, we've been very focused on removing as many exclusions as we can from our insurance products, so that we can actually explain our insurance products in a single text message. So we've been very much at the forefront of simplifying insurance products and taking exclusions. Probably to me, the insurers that she discovered as a result. At the moment, our teams are actively, because a lot of these policies come renewal sometime in the year. I think at the moment, the insurers seem to be kind of willing to give some kind of COVID-specific product, with perhaps a 60 to 90 day for members and a 14-day waiting period. But it'll be interesting to see whether or not the the kind of loss ratios are anyway. Yeah, I don't know how to turn the camera off. Let's try that.
Hi, Richard. If you could please continue, I think the sound should be okay. It's had a smattering of going in and out, but it should be okay. If it's any issue, we'll just message you. Hi, Richard. Can you hear me? Hi, everyone. I think Richard's just having a bit of trouble with his sound. So if anyone has any particular questions, I think what we might have to do...
Seb, Seb, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah, next slide.
Great. So I think the really interesting question is what happens when the world kind of returns to work from the COVID crisis. 97% of people in our markets don't have insurance, so people seem to be much more open to the idea of now buying insurance. They don't have kind of universal health. They don't have a national health service to go to. And as a result, I think there's going to be this massive demand for insurance. And one of the big issues for us as an insurtech is how do we raise the capital that's necessary to invest in having the kind of capacity to meet that demand. So it's going to be interesting over the next few weeks as to whether we can just put in place enough demand or enough call center agents and enough capacity to be able to deal with the kind of the demand that we're expecting once people get back to work. There's been a huge amount of interest from the World Bank about how to use insurance or how we can leverage insurance to kind of get over the next wave of COVID, which is arguably coming later in the year. So I think that's it. Seb, from my side, back to you and any questions.
Thank you, Richard.
Clear?
Thank you, everyone. And sorry about the slight sound difficulties. We're just getting used to the new platform. We do have a few minutes left, and we can run over a little bit. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box below the platform. But I'd just like to start. I've got a couple of questions specifically. Sarah, can you hear me? I just wanted to ask you, thank you for that really interesting overview.
A more active response from
I know you do a lot of work,
or
and
those startup financial
your work
service
is in the banking sector and the fintech sector. Can you tell me a little bit about the differences you're seeing in the responses with those ecosystems, and if there are any similarities perhaps between fintech and insurtech, and how banking and insurance are responding?
this than we have from the larger banks, although that should be caveated that in a lot of the world, certainly large parts of the world that have been hit hard, so Europe and the US, the banks have been forced to respond by governments and regulators. They've been told to do things, to give people mortgage holidays, to give people credit repayment holidays, to give loans to small businesses. The problem, of course, that all these large institutions are having is that they have their own problems. They're having to work from home, they're having to work remotely. I mean, they can't therefore operate call centers, they can't actually respond to customers. They've all got huge paper-based processes, so a lot of things that you usually have to send a form in for is not possible anymore, because even if you can send the form, there's nobody to receive it. So all those government enacted programs have really been slow to roll out because the companies just aren't able to do it. The fintechs, on the other hand, as you can imagine, have been much quicker, particularly on the lending side. Their platforms are set up, ready to go. They use a lot of open APIs. They ingest company data to really quickly and easily assess credit worthiness and then get money to those people within 24 hours. One of the problems we have seen there is that, particularly in the UK, the smaller lenders have not been allowed into the government program quickly because the government can't process the applications. But in brief, yes, absolutely, the fintechs, the startups have proven themselves much more agile, much more customer centric, and much more able to cope than the large institutions, many of which are creaking.
Thank you very much. It's very complex, isn't it? I mean, it's fascinating to see the differences between the two ecosystems and the similarities. Thank you very much, Sarah. Just got to address some of these other questions. Tunde from Hassan Bashir in Kenya. How are people in Kenya reaching your system?
Okay, so I was just going to type that into the chat box, but essentially what we've done is to create recommendations which are geolocalized. So, for instance, if you take the test via the platform, what happens is there's a pink action button which is called the recommendation button, right? And once that pink action button comes up, it gives the different recommendations per country that we have actually highlighted. So it basically talks about the numbers to escalate and to call. Immediately you see that you are at high risk. If you are in Kenya, if you are in Nigeria, if you are in Ghana, if you are in Tanzania, or if you're in South Africa. So it's basically been able to give the national contact details for Kenya and the other cities as well. In addition, how we're able to reach again is for people who are not COVID positive or who basically just want to reach out and chat with a physician, right? Our partner platform, which I mentioned earlier, is actually taking chats from different places, even from outside Africa at the moment. It's called onkopadi.com. So yeah, we're able to reach out essentially that way. We're also trying to see how we can scale up this number of clinically driven AI evaluations. But that's something that we're discussing per time, with the different agencies.
Thank you very much, Tunde. And now a question for Richard. Richard, can you hear us? I think Richard's going slightly in and out. So another question for Sarah. Sarah, I'm not sure if you saw this on the side from Peter Buren. A lot of your examples were platform related, and you suggest this is partly due to them being a specific risk.
So if I understand the question, it's
is part of it not also the ability
twofold.
of gig platforms
yes,
to react faster in a similar manner to fintechs?
Gig economy workers out there and small businesses out there who are perhaps some of those in greatest need. But you're absolutely right that the platforms that have been built to support those workers, whether those are insurance platforms or whether they are in fact, as somebody mentioned earlier, as I mentioned earlier, just generic platform. So you build a platform to support gig economy workers. It is a new platform. It's going to have to be technology based, because to support those workers, you have to be able to keep up with the jobs they're doing, and those jobs are largely technology based. So yes, it's kind of a twofold effect, if you like. It's the workers being most at need, and those platforms being able to respond as quickly, if not perhaps more quickly than some of the fintech peers. then
Sarah,
hand
thank you
over to
very much
Tunde,
for that.
if that works.
And I think
Yeah,
we
so I
probably
think
have time for one more
we see all this in
question.
banking that
Unfortunately,
the large banks, and particularly the retail banks, have
Richard
sort of
wasn't able
suddenly
to join us
were
for the
waking up
Q&A.
even before this
That
happened
may
to
be
the
the
need
platform.
to offer those truly
But
digital
there's a
services I
question from
mentioned, and a lot of them
Virginia,
had
which I
come to the
think we could
realization that they're just not
potentially
capable
ask
of doing that on their own, that they
to
have to
both
get
Sarah and
in
Tunde. That how do you
suppliers, they
think
have to get
traditional
in third
insurers
parties who
should be linked
specialize
to
in being able
Insurtech,
to
and
build and
what do you
deliver
think we
those
should do
products
to
and
promote
services?
more
A
joint
lot of those
work
third
and
parties and
fight
suppliers are
against
what
the
we would
current
call
moment
fintechs. I
in
think
which
this
the
really will be a
urgent
wake-up moment for the
is
insurance
more
industry,
important?
and I think that they will realize the need to accelerate their
Yeah, please
movement
do.
towards digitalizing, towards being able to cope in a modern, largely digital era. We don't know how long lockdown, etc., is going to go on. They're going to have to be able to do things digitally, remotely, whatever that means. And I think that this will be a real wake-up call for them to start looking for those, or I hope it will, for those insurtechs to start seeing how people can help them, and to look for those partners that they are best suited to their needs. From the Insurtech's perspective, I'm a big believer in getting together and banding together and giving yourself lobbying power. That means you've got one voice. It's a louder voice because there's a lot of you. Is a lot of you involved. And when there's a lot of you together, you can organize yourselves, and therefore you become easier for the insurers to find. So say an insurer knows it needs help with its customer service on the claim management side. It wants to go out and look for a startup. There are hundreds of startups that do that. But if you're part of a large organization that has pooled resources and one loud voice, then you're much more likely to be heard and to be spotted by that company. Then you can start championing each other.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Tunde, just to sort of wrap us up, what is your response to that, and also, how are you seeing the insurance sector actually rally and support what is going on in Africa or Nigeria?
So, it's very clear, to us on this side of the fence and on the continent that traditional mechanisms are going to evolve very strongly post this COVID era, right? And it's interesting how, there's that dynamic at this point in time where, certain decisions need to be made as regards how businesses will evolve. Now, going directly to the complexity, because I assume we're answering Dennis' question, I just read it again in the chart. Going directly to the complexity of the nature of the products of insurance. I think my response to that would be like, we can't, continuously go with methodologies that we've always been used to or comfortable with and expect different outcomes and results. So, with that said, what's essential at this point in time is how can, insurance products be simpler, be faster, and then give the kind of value that they're expected at the end user's part. What I think is very, very essential is the fact that even in Africa, and of course, globally in the rest of the world, is we keep looking for ways and methodologies that this technology would, taper across all the communities and all the target audience without any segmentations, right? Because globally, when I say global, in Africa, let me use Africa as a continent, the level of penetration for insurance is just still less than 3%, which means there's still 97% of the population, right, which is outside the insurance net. And then Africa attests for, you have 1.2 billion people out of the 6 billion people supposedly on planet Earth. That's a large number. When we look at the numbers, the digital inclusion and the digitization of services and products, for me, it's a catalyst. It's what is going to engender how this inclusion and then the penetration can go into very rural, sub-rural areas, and everyone has some basic level of cover. Plus, when we look at the sustainable development, which is something that personally I'm passionate about, the only way to make sure that we close the gaps, cutting across each of these goals, is to digitize these solutions. That's what I would say.
So much, guys. You can people can
Hi,
find me on
Tunde.
Twitter
Sorry, we
if
just
they
had
need
to edit your
ask me more
video there
questions.
because I think your strobe light
No
was
worries.
coming back on.
No worries.
But we can hear you very well. Sorry, would you like to finish your point?
So, I mean, like I was saying that for me, I think what is very critical at this point is not only the responses that have happened globally or even in Africa as regards the COVID response, but post the COVID era, right? There's going to be a lot of changes. And I see this as that opportunity to connect the newer ways and the refined ways of actually delivering insurance products digitally within the different ecosystems. That's what I would say.
Brilliant. Tunde, thank you very much for that. And also to Sarah, everyone, thank you. I realize we've overrun by about 3 minutes, but thank you all very much for checking in to our first webinar. I think learned a few things on the technical side on our end, but I hope you've learned a lot about the global response we've had in the Insurtech ecosystem. I think Sarah gave a fantastic overview, so thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you also for helping with moving on quickly when we had some technical issues. Tunde, thank you so much for your support and for sponsoring this webinar. If anyone would like to reach out to the speakers, please either do so directly or via us. We will also be sending out some information so you can have the slides and also the details of those presenting in case you'd like to connect with them afterwards. Thank you all very much. We'll be back on the 23rd of April for our second episode with people from the UK government, Babylon Health, and some other insurtechs across the world. So thank you all very much. Sarah, Tunde, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to following up with you.
Thanks, Sebastian. It's a pleasure working with you on this. Thank you.
Brilliant. If anyone didn't hear that, you can find Sarah on Twitter for any questions.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm also available on LinkedIn in real time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tunde's on LinkedIn. Thank you all very much. Happy Easter. Speak to you soon.